Hello, and welcome to America's Veterans. My name is Len Sorotsky, and I will serve as your host. In my opinion, one of the most critical things lacking in our nation today is leadership at all levels. We need individuals chosen to serve in a leadership capacity because that is what they do best, not because the money involved nor some other warped reason. In the military, leadership is absolutely required. Without it, you lose. In the United States Air Force, there is a rank called Command Chief Master Sergeant. The rank is reserved for only a very, very small number of enlisted persons who display a significant amount of leadership plus experience. The individual must also be nominated for the position by the Department of Defense. We have a Command Chief Master Sergeant with us today. He retired with more than 30 years of service to his country. He has too many stories to tell within our time frame, so we must get to it right away. Allow me to introduce CCM retired Carl Hunsinger. Carl, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Len, for having me here.
Yeah. Well, you are actually kicking off the 13th year of America's Veterans, so we're glad to have you. And we're going to take a look at your life up until the time you were in the military, then following the military. How the heck did you ever end up here in Manatee County? And we'll try to get through all of that. So let's start out with this photo, and could you just tell us about this, please?
Well, it's pretty close to the beginning, let's just say that, and that's before I got my first stripe in the Air Force.
You were making other kinds of stripes, I'm sure, here. And who is your pal?
Well, my pal there is a German Shepherd by the name of Fritz, my very first pet.
Now we move on a few years later, and
yeah, that's Stark, Florida. That's around the age of 15, I think I was in there.
But you know what? I forgot to ask you where you were born, because you reminded me you're now in Stark. But you weren't born in Stark.
No, I wasn't.
Tell me where you were born.
I was born in Los Angeles, California, but was not there very long.
Right. And so let's continue.
Well, of course, born in Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
The only thing I got to do in Los Angeles was shortly after I was born, there and about, they had this thing called a grand opening of Disneyland in California.
Yeah.
And I don't remember it, but I was told that I was there, and that's what matters.
Cool.
Then we went on to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where my brother was born.
Yeah.
And then after that, we went on to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where my sister was born.
Yeah.
And we left there in 1959.
And so then you got to Stark.
Then we got to Florida.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. And actually, you stayed in Stark all the way through high school, right? And this is you and your brother.
Yes, that's my brother and I, and in the middle is my foster father.
And then we get to graduation time. And
that is the graduation photo. Didn't have a whole lot of dollars back then, so that's the only photo a couple of photos you'll have of me of a graduation. But certainly a lot of fun there.
And you had a good time in Stark.
Absolutely. I took advantage of all the opportunities that were there. Track and cross country, I did that early on. I made varsity as an 8th grader, and yeah, with a
Cool.
10 flat 100-yard dash time, which got the attention of the coach for the track team, and then enjoyed that.
So after high school,
Well, right
you
after
decided to stay in Stark, right?
That's correct. Right after high school, I was able to enter into a couple of classes. They were actually courses for the state of Florida. One was the Correctional Training Institute, which I believe you're looking at now, and that's a photo from that. And that's to become a correctional officer. And I began working at Union Correctional Institution in Rayford, Stark, Florida area.
How long did you keep that job?
I kept that job until I joined the Air Force in 1978.
1978. So high school to Air Force, that's just a few years.
Yeah, just a few years. I was almost 23 when I came in.
And so then you joined the Air Force. Was there any reason you joined the Air Force?
Well, yeah, there is a little bit of a reason. I will tell you that working at the prison, one of the last things that happened to me is I got caught up in a riot in Union Correctional Institution.
Wow.
And so my 10 hours that I was already in turned into another 12 hours until they basically got things under control there. And I was in the middle of escorting an inmate into a medical facility. And so I joined the Air Force because I thought it'd be something safer.
And after you did your basic, you went to school. In fact, you went to a lot of schools.
There's a lot of schools. You know, when you look at your veterans, you look at your military, they truly are professionals. And because of all the education and on top of all the experience, it really makes them a very, very good source for employment.
And so what was do you remember your first duty station was really outside of the U.S. was Germany?
My first duty assignment was Hahn Air Base, Germany. It's now at Flugplatz, and Germany was a great assignment. I believe the photo is me playing softball. That was the softball team we had there. We got to travel a little bit with that, but we weren't on a permanent rotation deal. We actually had to work.
Yeah, and when you were in Germany, let's see, this is from Germany.
There was a General Leedy was a general officer in the Army that was in charge of the European theater, what's called AFIS, Armed Forces or Air Force Exchange Services, Army Air Force, I'm sorry. And in that picture that you're looking at now, I was selected as a model for uniforms for the military. So my picture went up on posters all over Europe, and didn't realize that until our softball team went to Ramstein Air Base, Germany, and we were walking through the base exchange there, which is AFIS, and we noticed that, and then they never let me forget that.
Yeah. When you were in Germany, the wall was still up.
The wall was still up. We did have an opportunity to take a bus ride into Berlin, into East Germany, to a place called Tempelhof in Berlin, which is on the west side, and then we went into East Berlin with many instructions on what we can and can't do once we crossed into that territory. Very much an educational piece and very much an eye-opener on the difference between what it was to be a free American and not a free person.
Right. And while you were in Germany, what was your job? What were you doing at that?
My job there was transportation. It could be tractor trailer runs, but most of it was fleet management. And then all of a sudden they brought these boxes into the office one day, and in them was something called a Z100 dot metrics printer and a computer with a floppy disk drive, and I'd never seen these things before. And my boss said, "Yeah, you're young, you could figure this out." And so we broke open the box, and I spent hours and hours there, to the point my wife thought I had something on the side, and it wasn't a computer, but it was the computer, and that's what I was doing.
Were you married when you were in Germany?
Absolutely.
That's where you were married.
Right. No, I was married at Homestead Air Force Base in 1983.
Okay, but you were assigned to Germany at that time, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I have a hard time keeping track of where you were and what you were doing.
Sometimes I do too.
Yeah, I bet you do. and I know that in Germany, it was fairly often that you took train rides to tell us about one.
Well,
that you remember.
many train rides. Some of the locations I had to go to, my arm was twisted, I'll tell you. But was Denmark. I had some official business in Denmark. And then, of course, the weekend, I could go out and go play a little bit. And I did get on a train, and I fell asleep on the train. I was going to a place called Flensburg, Germany, and I was going to work my way out to a place called Zilt Island in Germany. But instead, I fell asleep. They disconnected the train. I ended up on a ferry boat. A train on a ferry boat, it happens. And then I ended up in a place called Copenhagen, or Copenhagen. And so that's where my weekend was spent. Not exactly what I planned, but you know what? It turned out to be a pretty darn good event.
Yeah, okay, so you saw the mermaid and all that?
All those things,
all
yes,
that good
everything.
Stuff. Yeah. But I want to know, you did get married, and you have how many? Your family has, you got 3 children?
I got 2 sons and a daughter.
Right, and so this is a picture of the
That
family
is
all
correct.
together
Yeah.
in 1990.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great family.
Great family.
Yeah, and then from Germany, you're off to Hawaii.
That's correct. Went off to Hawaii while I was at Osan Air Base, Korea. I got selected by an individual from the headquarters PACAF who came in and saw some of the work I did as a command fleet manager, or as a fleet manager locally, and then combat readiness. And because of that, they said they'd like to have me on their team at the headquarters PACAF in Hawaii. And so they took me over there and asked me for an interview, and we did an interview, and they said they'd like to have me on board. And I said, well, let me think about it. And then I remember the top enlisted guy says, do you really want to think about coming to Hawaii? Is that something you really want to think about? And I said, well, not really. I want to come, but I need to talk to my wife. He said, so when can you talk to her? Well, this is before cell phones. So, you know, you got to go find a phone booth somewhere and do all that. And I said, you know what? I just know she'll say yes.
Yeah.
So we took the assignment.
Yeah.
And that started us off in Hawaii.
What that role that you just said that a fleet
manager. Mm-hmm.
What is a fleet manager?
Okay,
What is that?
fleet manager, you know, we'd have hundreds and hundreds of vehicles at different bases to the tune of thousands within the Pacific fleet area. So you're talking about Japan, you're talking about Guam, Singapore, Alaska, all these different territories, and of course Hawaii along the way. That's a lot of government vehicles, anything from snow removal to weapons type vehicles to basic sedans, cars, trucks, those type of things.
And your job was to keep track of them?
Not just keep track of them, but also to replace them, buy them. So I was part of the Vehicle Priority Buy program too. So we had to budget for those, for the congressional budget and the president's budget. And so we're talking about $800 million budget that we had to work with for vehicles for the Pacific Rim.
I know you were in your 30 years that you actually ended up on Hawaii in 2 different assignments, right? But
That's correct.
But this first one, then from there, I remember you telling me that there was a time that you viewed or discussed the episode as the end of the world.
Well, that was my second assignment in Hawaii.
Second.
So I arrived in Hawaii around the May timeframe of 2001, and we all know what happened in September of 2001, September 11th. Well, I was at home, and you know, Hawaii time is the wee hours of the morning for anybody sitting in D.C. area or in the Eastern Seaboard. So I received a phone call that woke me up in wee hours of the morning. And my friend from Washington, D.C. said, you need to turn on the television. We just had a tower hit. And as I turned the television on, while I'm grabbing my clothes, just not for sure what's going to happen next, and I saw a second tower being struck. I didn't know exactly what all was going on, as most Americans did not have a clue what was really happening at that point. But I knew it was disastrous and it probably needed my attention. So I'm only about a half a mile from the headquarters PACAF building. I'm in the chief's quarters on base next to Pearl Harbor. So I immediately donned my uniform, got in the vehicle, no shaving, none of that stuff, no waste of time, and got in there. I was the first top enlisted to show up in the control center for the Pacific Rim for the Air Force.
Just in case.
Just in case, and just in case turned out to be quite the moment.
Yeah. Well, and then after you ended up in Homestead there, and in interchange of sorts with President Bush.
That goes back to my second time at Homestead Air Force Base. So I believe it was around the 1988-89 time frame. I believe there was a Governor Martinez was governor of the state of Florida at the time while I was stationed at Homestead. President Bush was coming in. It was about environmental protection or something to do with the Everglades. Yeah. But typically there's a standby motorcade, if you will, and if there's a military base involved, then the military gets involved in that motorcade that would be on call in case it's needed. Mm-hmm. Well, in our particular case, we were needed. It was kind of a joint effort with us and the Secret Service to put this motorcade together, and we did that towards the last of the moments there, mm-hmm. which is always a good thing to do it that way. Mm-hmm. And so I was part of that, and there wasn't really a place for me to be. I was kind of in charge of my drivers who took care of the media and some of the other folks that was part of that motorcade. So I got to go in the command and control vehicle with the Secret Service right behind the limousines for the president. Mm. So I got to watch the Marine One helicopters come in and do their thing, and it was kind of an interesting experience to have for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've never done that. Then you still managed to get to Las Vegas in '97, I think.
I got to Las Vegas, and you know, not for gambling, of course.
No.
I was given an assignment. Actually, I'm a volunteer. Most of the things I've done has been volunteer. But I did volunteer for the 50th anniversary for our Air Force, which was 1997. And a general officer, chief of staff of the Air Force by the name of General Fogelman was kind enough to bring me on board as one of his two top enlisted to run the transportation piece. He had invited over 90 chief of staffs of Air Forces from our friendly neighbors around the world, uh-huh. and our job was to make sure they got transported around the Las Vegas area to include the nearby base at Nellis, and that became quite the deal. Quick story: I remember one night General Fogelman had all of his general officers, his Air Force general officers, around a table somewhere. And he got done with that, and then he had an event, and he was in his mess dress, and he came into the control center where I was seated, and I didn't know he was in the room. He came from behind me, and his hand went upon my shoulder, and he says, Sergeant, I was a master sergeant at the time, says, Sergeant Hunsinger, I need to speak with you. And I went and stood up at attention, and of course he's a very strong man, and he pushed me back down in my seat. He says, you can remain seated. He said, I want you to know that if any of my general officers come in here and they need special attention, and I mean my Air Force general officers that work for me need special attention, and it's got a chance of jeopardizing us taking care of the 90 plus general officers from around the world, then they need to find another alternative mode of transportation.
Yeah.
I said, wow, I never thought I'd be in a position one day where I could actually tell a 3-star general maybe that he's got to go take a bus. Well, I'll tell you, that just happened. Yeah. It happened right after that. I had a 3-star come in and say, I need transportation to Nellis Air Force Base. I said, sir, I'm tapped out on drivers. They're all busy right now. And but there is a bus outside Bally's that you're more than welcome to take, and I can tell you the rest of that schedule. I knew that General Fogelman had talked to his generals simply because there was no problems with a 3-star. He totally understood.
Uh-huh. Good. And so that was a celebration after that.
Yeah, it was tough to do, but it was it was an unusual situation. I didn't know if I was going to be a 1-striper again after that, but nonetheless, it was my job to do that.
You did your job. Yeah. You always did your job. Yeah. That's disgusting. And then this is a photo from 1998. And
actually, that photo's a little bit earlier than that. Those are the tech sergeant stripes. But that is, went to the Air Force Ball with that photo, and it was a pretty good event. That was still around the Homestead area at the time as an E6 there. Mm-hmm. And so it was good times in Homestead for sure. Yeah. And of course, wore that uniform at many events, and including when I went to the Navy Senior Enlisted Academy.
That's the one I was trying to get to, and the Navy. Sometimes you were working with the Navy, sometimes you were working with the Army, But you were supposed to be working with the Air Force or something. You really got around. That was kind of cool.
It's kind of confusing, but I volunteered for many different things. It's all about the flag that you see right behind me right now. It's all about that. And,
sure.
And so with the Navy, I had an opportunity. We've got what's called a Senior Enlisted Academy type thing for the Air Force, and all branches of service have those for their Senior Enlisted. So I took advantage of that. And because I was working for the Pentagon at the time out of Montgomery, Alabama, I had my choice. I had my choice of schools that I could go to. Well, the Sergeant Major's course is about 10 months, and that's a permanent change of station. So I really didn't want to do that. And then the Navy had one at Newport, Rhode Island. So I said I'd like to go to the Navy Academy. So I went to the Navy Senior Enlisted Academy, and had a great time and learned a whole lot about what the Navy's got going on.
Did you carry a book or something to look at so you could tell where you were? You really were flitting around everywhere.
Sometimes you had to look up and get your bearings. Where am I today?
I can understand that, because this is in Japan, and you, on this date, you were receiving the Army Bronze Star.
Yes, the Bronze Star, as you know, is a Department of Defense. It's all branches of service can have as an opportunity of earning that. I was doing Army missions in Iraq, Mosul, Iraq area, but all up and down the MSR, main supply route from the Turkish border through Kurdish territory all the way down to the Kuwaiti border, doing gun truck security. So we had the security team. Well, something happened. Of course, we had what's called the Mosul massacre that took place, where our dining facility was blown up, and we lost many soldiers, and quite a few were injured and wounded in that deal. So with that operation, the command sergeant major they had at the time of the battalion, 17 CSB, had some other issues and things that he had to take care of. So I was asked by the battalion in the United States Army if I would also sit in as the command sergeant major. So I got to be a command sergeant major, and I inherited about 7 first sergeants, Army first sergeants, and about 900 soldiers, along with my 160 airmen. They say, well, you going to be able to do that with the Army? I said, a soldier, an airman, a Marine, a sailor, guess what? They were once my neighbors somewhere, and they're all Americans, and leadership is leadership, so what else do you need to know?
Did you ever report to anybody?
I did report to multiple people at times, because in that particular case, for example, I was reporting to a place down in Balad, down in the Baghdad area, but I had a captain there, and then I had a Lieutenant Colonel Army Battalion Commander, and then we had an Army Colonel, and then we had a 1-star General Ham, and who later became a 4-star. So yes, there was multiple reportings, but it was pretty easy. You always do the right thing. You lead your troops, don't worry about the politics, and take care of the business.
But you made your own decisions on a number, it seems like, or you would have to get approval first and then go and...
Well, there was I learned that the leadership in a combat environment is way different, and it truly is. In fact, I'm working on a book right now that'll say that. And it is totally different than your day-to-day leadership. There are some commonalities to it, but in a combat environment, you have to make instantaneous decisions that make the difference between life and death.
Absolutely.
I lost a young airman, just did his 21st birthday, and then on August 29th, he went out on a convoy and he was killed in a lead gun truck. I went out on a convoy just before that, all the way down to Baghdad. I didn't find out until probably the next morning that he had been killed. And so it took everything I had in me to find a way back up there, and to the point where I was threatening a warrant officer down at the yard in a place called Anaconda, which is a yard down south around Baghdad area. And I finally got out there, because you see E9s and O5s, lieutenant colonels or Navy commanders and above, had the authority to go outside the wire without written approval or letters. And I, being a E9, had that authority, and I was ready to do that. I needed to get back up because I had a lot of troops that were in a bad situation. So.
And the uniform that you were wearing, at least at some of that time, is this would be...
That was a later assignment. That was my last assignment in the Air Force. And so in 2007, The Air Force came out with a new uniform called the Airman Battle Uniform, and that's the uniform you're looking at right now.
So airmen are not always flying airplanes.
Airmen are not always flying airplanes. Now, I will tell you this, a lot of folks that I talked to, a lot of other service members were shocked and surprised to see airmen doing convoys.
Yeah.
And you know, we were part of the Tuskegee Airmen when I was in Mosul, Red Tail Flyers.
Wow.
So, yeah, the 332nd.
Now, the time that you spent in Kuwait and Iraq, that's when people were shooting guns and stuff like that, right?
That's correct. We had these makeshift trucks, M923 5-ton military-style trucks that we basically pulled out of salvage, and we had to weld them and fix them, and we had great mechanics that made those things happen. But you know, you didn't have to be a mechanic, you just needed one that knew what to do to tell the rest of us what to do next. And we put our trucks out there by testing evaluation because we didn't have anything in the States being delivered. And that last photo you saw, that is what's called an MRAP, and that's the replacement to make up the difference for those vehicles that weren't doing a good job protecting our troops.
And from this photo, we know that you actually carried a weapon.
Yeah, believe it or not, they let E9s, Chief Master Sergeants and Command Chiefs carry weapons. It happens. But that was an M4. We carried that, kept it with us at all times. I also carried a 9mm Beretta with me as well. But the best weapon that I carried with me were the troops around me.
Yeah.
They made the difference.
Yeah. And I know, tell the story about the convoy that you had to, where you had the lead truck.
That picture right there, where I'm standing behind a 50 caliber machine gun, I can tell you I was not manning that machine gun on that particular convoy, but that was a nice little photo to send to friends, if you will. But
Sure.
What we did there is in the northern area of Iraq, in the Kurdish territory, we were at a place called Harbor Gate. And we had all those trucks that you see in that photo in the background, refuelers, water trucks, some not in such great shape, would have to travel a couple hundred miles southbound, and we would have to protect them with our gun trucks. They break down, guess what? You're a sitting duck, waiting for something terrible to happen while that gets fixed.
Yeah. But you were in the lead truck.
I was always around a convoy commander position. Most of the time I was a ranking individual.
And am I right that you also had to keep track of all these trucks?
We had to keep track of all the trucks, what was going on with them, which ones did we have to leave behind to save our lives. You know, it was not a very good situation. Sometimes you'd have to leave a water truck. Sometimes you'd have to destroy a vehicle so that the enemy could not obtain that asset, that resource.
But would it be true that the lead truck is the one that's in most peril, generally speaking?
Usually it's the lead gun truck,
Yeah.
which is where Airman Anderson was killed in the lead gun truck. But the ones that I would be in the center point. A lot of times the enemy will break up a convoy and confuse a convoy, and they'll hit the center portion of the convoy where they know the leadership could possibly be.
Wow.
So that does happen. We did have one complex attack one night, but you know, it happened at every one of our convoys. We had something happen because it's the one road. Everybody, they know you're on this one road going back and forth, back and forth. So it's like a carnival with the ducks going back and forth. You just sooner or later you're going to get hit.
Somebody's going to get it. Yeah. And they had pretty good weapons. They
did. The enemy is well equipped.
Yeah.
They use improvised explosive devices. Those are improvised, but you get 3 155 shells or some mortar shells, and you put them together, and you throw a bunch of nails and other types of objects in there. When that explodes, it just goes through about anything. In fact, it'll cut through your engine block just like it's butter.
Yeah. So this was obviously one damaged vehicle.
That is one of our damaged vehicles. Of course, you see the wheels and all burned off of it, and it's riddled with holes in it.
Yeah. And then this one, I couldn't understand this. I looked at it and I thought, wow.
We lost a guy in that one in 2004 while I was out there, and you see the holes in the fuel tank all the way up to the top. Again, that's all those bolts, bearings, nails that are packed inside of a improvised explosive device. with amazing amount of power. That's just unbelievable amount of power that's behind that explosion.
Were you glad to get out of that area?
To be honest with you, most people think that I would be glad to get out.
Yeah.
I was glad to get my folks out of there. I was glad to get my troops out of there. Yeah. That's all I could focus on, is getting them out of there. I did not need to lose one more person. I didn't need to lose the first one.
Yeah, but you still had to get home to your family. Jeez.
I didn't think much about that. I thought about their families. I thought about them getting home. That's just the way it is.
You're really screwed up.
I am. I am. And I'm doing that today, volunteering, 100% volunteer. Yeah. I don't draw a dime from anybody. I just do this.
Tell me this. Did you have any personal thoughts about the war in the broad sense? I mean, like, did you ever think about, what am I doing here, or why are we here? Or?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because all the time I would have airmen come up to me and approach me and say, Chief, why are we doing this? Why are we even out here?
Yeah.
Well, we would get out there on certain missions, and one time I went through and I saw all these children out there. And so we went and approached them, gave them parts of our MREs, and they were so happy to see us, gave them some water. They were excited about that. Some of these children were missing arms. This is the kind of lifestyle they had under Saddam's regime. That's what they had to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so we saw that, and I looked at my airmen and I said, you know what? Anytime that you ask yourself why you're here, forget about the political reasons. Mm-hmm. Think about the people here. Mm-hmm. Human beings are human beings. What can we do to help? Mm-hmm. And we're here to do that job.
When did you get out?
I left the service. I retired in 2008. I left the Middle East in July 2008, and did my retirement on my birthday, July 31st. And it worked out really great. While I was over there for my retirement, my last active duty in the military, a 3-star general, was doing a change of command ceremony for my boss and then his replacement. And in our audience, of course, we had the American ambassador to Kuwait. We had a few of the Saudi reps in there. We had some British general officers. We had Australian general officers and top enlisted. A lot of folks that were in the audience. Well, the general stopped the change of command ceremony where I was presenting the flag to my boss for the change of command. And he stopped and he introduced me to everybody that was there, saying this was my last duty. And it was kind of like a mini retirement while I was still there. Mm-hmm. But I did retire when I returned back to Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. Mm-hmm. And that was a very nice retirement.
And this is not your retirement photo.
No.
But it's one that I think really showed you kind of like with the way you were.
Yeah,
right?
that was back in 2005. A couple more rows of ribbons in the newer picture, but that was back in 2005, where I was selected to be a command chief for Scott Air Force Base.
Right. Wow. And this picture, I think this is a great picture, and tell us about it if you would, please.
Yes, that's 2006 Air Force birthday. We were in the Millennium Hotel in St. Louis, and that's from our 375th Airlift Wing at the time, and now it's called Air Mobility Wing, and that's my wife next to me, Linda. And we were having a great time that night, and we had quite a few people there from all branches of service enjoying our birthday.
Yeah. And then finally, as far as the pictures are concerned, this is my last photo of you.
Well, I was already retired, and I had associate's degrees and things like that, but I didn't have a bachelor's degree. I was one of the few command chiefs in the Air Force without a bachelor's degree. So I'm not sure how that worked, how that happened, but it did, nonetheless, but I still want to make it right because I wasn't far from it. So I entered an 18-month program with a workforce education development program out of Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Yeah. Did most of the classes, believe it or not, at Scott Air Force Base, and the photo you just showed is a picture of me with the Mickey Mouse hat at graduation. And my daughter and I went to Disney World before that graduation, and she asked me if I would wear that hat at my graduation. And I said, you bet I will, sweetheart. I will wear that hat proudly. Well, the school didn't really want me to do that. And I was supposed to be the speaker, and or one of the graduates to walk across the stage. And I basically said I probably wouldn't do that because I need to honor my daughter's request. Yeah. And the school said, you know what, that's the way it should be. Yeah. It's a promise that you need to keep. And they allowed me to do that. What a great school. Yeah. And so I did.
I looked at your major awards and all the decorations, and I know you're not wearing it today, but you've got like 6 rows of all these. Do you have any that really stand out to you?
Yeah, it's about I think 8 rows of ribbons.
8 rows.
8 rows of ribbons, and it's I've been awarded 2 Bronze Stars and many meritorious service medals and accommodation medals, and you know, the Iraqi campaign medals and things. There's a bunch of them, but you know, it gets to the point where you really start to worry about whether you're going to get another ribbon or not. Not that you want one, you don't want one because it costs you money. You got to put another ribbon rack together. So it became more annoying to get a ribbon than it did to say, hey, look what I got. You know, like, oh, look what I got. No, it was annoying because it cost you money.
But when you retired, did you have sort of like mixed feelings a little bit about leaving the guys and also coming home? But you actually retired in 2 places, did you not?
Yeah, I had a retirement ceremony in 2 places.
Yeah.
When I was in the Middle East, that was actually a permanent change of station assignment. Only a select few get that. So that is actually my job. My base was in the Middle East, you know, out of Shaw Air Force Base, if you will, in South Carolina. So that's kind of what I was doing. And so, so you work for a 3-star, you're kind of like a numbered Air Force type thing. And so it was unique in a lot of ways. So you end up back at Scott Air Force Base where you were a command chief. All the people there knew who you were. You see, while I was in Kuwait, in Iraq, I had 20 to 30,000 enlisted that would rotate through there that I was responsible for. So that's like going 200 miles an hour and then you slow down to like 15 miles an hour, 20 miles per hour. And that's hard for me to do. But I maxed out my time in uniform. In fact, I exceeded my time and I had to have a waiver to go past the exact 30-year mark.
That's when you must leave.
That's when you're supposed to leave.
You're supposed to.
But I was able to exceed that by a little
6
bit.
months.
And I would have stayed longer. If I could have stayed 40, I would have stayed 40. You see, I took an oath. My oath is for life.
I know. Yeah. Well, you're certainly a great airman, I'd say. So fantastic stories. And so you're out of the Air Force. Then what?
I'm out of the Air Force, and then, you know, we bought this house. It had about 3,200 square feet, kind of 3 levels. It had a walkout basement, and I had what's called, you know, the man cave.
And where was this?
And this is in Illinois. This was still outside of Scott Air Force Base in a place called Belleville, Illinois.
Yep.
And so I'm kind of hanging out there trying to decide what I'm going to do. Can't really make up my mind. Of course, I've always loved music, so I started Fireball Music Entertainment. And Fireball was my call sign that my last boss gave me because I could stand the heat inside those Humvees at 170 degrees, I think, because we saw the frozen bottle of water eventually end up as boiling water in the same bottle. So we knew it got pretty hot in there. So I was Fireball, and I started Fireball Music Entertainment, and I started DJing as a hobby because I loved it. And it turned out I started making kind of a lot of with it. The weddings and things like that. I did a lot of weddings.
More than what you made in the military.
So I wasn't the wedding singer, but you know, it wasn't too far from being that wedding singer. But I did enjoy that, and it was very relaxing. And then I got asked if I'd be interested in consulting on a job, and so I did some consulting work in Fairborn, Ohio, that led to the Air Force Museum there, and establishing some transportation pieces and things like that. And then did some more consulting, and it was paying pretty good. But it wasn't all about the money. It never really has been about the money. Anybody that joins the military for the money is probably not thinking smart.
No.
But so it's never been about that. It's about enjoying life, and it's about taking care of others.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy when a person smiles. If I have a sincere smile from another individual that I'm talking to, that means I've done my job. I've made them happy. And if it's related to getting the job done, they're going to be a happier employee to get that job done. And so from there, I managed to obtain a job for a year. I came to Manatee County, thanks to the county administrator, Ed Hunsinger, here in Manatee County, and Ron Schuhofer, the public works director. They hired me. I came in, and I did a job here for a year as the transit manager, and a lot of innovative ideas. You know, government's kind of slow, so it didn't go as fast as I would like it to go. But I'm seeing some things coming to where they need to be, and that's a new transit facility, for example. Seeing a connector into St. Petersburg, Tampa area. Those are some great achievements that we were looking forward to. I had the opportunity to hire my replacement, actually, Bill Still, who is the transit manager, and I hired him on my exit. So.
And what year was that?
That was in, I got here in 2011, in October, and I've completed 1 year after that, October 2012.
Okay.
And I did some consulting work after that, which was very good work. And then I got into the volunteer business. And the volunteer business took hold 100% of my time, and that's what I did. So I was appointed by the Board of County Commissioners to sit on the Citizens Advisory Committee, and I did that for transportation, since I have a lot of transportation background. And I enjoyed doing that for 2 or 3 years, and then now I spend a lot of time.
Are you thinking of, are you going to arm the transportation?
Well, we won't put any. Now, some of the drivers sometimes think they should probably
carry a weapon?
Carry a weapon or something, but it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a peaceful environment, even though you hear the sirens and things like that going off.
Sure.
But I would say that doing the volunteer work for the CAC, Citizens Advisory, for the transportation, and then getting into the VFW, a member of the VFW, the American Legion, DAV Chapter 18, AMVETS, American Veterans over in Post 301. Those areas, they do so much in this community. Those veteran
there might be
organizations.
some people watching who heard you say DAV.
Disabled American Veterans, and yes, and you don't have to be disabled to be a member of that organization.
Okay.
But they are great representatives if you're trying to obtain your disability through the VA. And you do really need representation. I hate to say that you do, but you need representation to help you get through that very complicated process.
Sure. And you actually do have some injuries, do you not?
I do. I'm 40% disabled. Some of those things I was hanging on to while I was active duty all the way through, and you know, you just kind of, you got to be the tough guy when you're the top leader. You can't, you can't say, "Oh, I'm hurting. This is hurting me." You know, yeah, it hurts, but you don't show the expression, and you work your way through.
Yeah. Okay. And so, after all of the work with Manatee County, then you ended up with all of those groups, but the shirt you're wearing. And you know, I don't know if the cameras can catch your shirt. You have a very lovely shirt on, and it says Veterans Council. Tell us what the Manatee County Veterans Council is.
Yes, the Manatee County Veterans Council began in around the late 1980s. I was going to say 1800s. We know that's not true, but 1980s, and it's a very good organization. Basically, it's kind of like a spoken hub, if you will. You have all these veteran organizations, you got your community, but you need to have a center focal point for those things that need to be taken care of, and that's where the Veterans Council comes in. And so that's kind of what we do, is we basically bring the community together, the veteran community and the veteran support community. We bring them together for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's our community, veteran support, and now I would like to say we're even focusing more on taking care of our children, because the children are our future. So why not?
Yeah.
And that's what we should be doing.
Yes, we should. Do you know how many veterans or approximately how many veterans are in Manatee County? Do you know?
In Manatee County, we have around 40,000 plus veterans.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of veterans. I used to say to people that means if you walk past 8 people, one of them's a veteran. You know?
It almost feels that way, don't it?
Yeah, and we have a lot of veterans. Who makes up the council? Who's under her? So what, the various military organizations?
Yes, we have several of our veteran organizations that and post commanders that have that are members of our council, and they have one vote each when we take care of business. A lot of what we handle is some legislative things. One of the things that we did, for example, a couple of years ago, while we're not the only ones that introduced it, but we brought to Congressman Vern Buchanan's office a need for one veteran ID card for those that did not retire and obtain an ID card. You know, because today you have to walk around with a DD Form 214, 8.5, 11 sheet of paper.
Yeah, I have a V on my driver's license.
Or you can get a V on. Yeah, but there's some states that may not recognize it, and we don't always sit still. So the DD Form 214 is the common piece of paper for those that didn't retire. And so now this veteran ID card, whenever the VA can finally put closure to it and put it together, and I'm not sure why it's taken as long as it is, but Congressman Vern Buchanan is getting those answers from the VA right now as we speak.
Yeah, and I wish there was a way such that any veteran from Manatee County, the first thing they would do when they come home is to contact the council. Not the first thing they would do. I mean, you know, beer comes first.
Yeah, and then a night's sleep, maybe.
Yeah. But I mean, the Veterans Council works with the Lee Washington and his group. We really need to do a better job helping veterans.
I'm glad you brought that up. Lee Washington and his team in the Manatee County Veterans Services and the County Administration Building, they do a great job, by the way, of veterans. And they keep the Board of County Commissioners, they keep the county commissioners linked into what's going on as well. And that's very important, especially when it comes to legislative changes. Things that need to be taken all the way up to the state of Florida or even up to the federal level. Jim Boyd, representative for the state of Florida, he's our representative, and he does an outstanding job taking care of our folks here. No, this is not an election thing I'm talking about here. Yeah. That's just the way the man is. So we do appreciate that, and certainly the things that Lee's position holds true, and our job as the council is to make sure that all those things are connected, because you see, the makeup of our group is all of them are volunteers. They don't receive one single dollar.
That's right.
And we have 3 awards programs that we do for the community. We have a community award that goes to an organization that is not military, that does things for our veterans, our veteran families, and the veteran community. And then we have another award that goes to the auxiliary member of the year in one of these organizations. And then we have, of course, the Veteran of the Year. And those programs is one of our ways of saying thank you to some really unique folks that are doing a great job in our community.
Yeah, thanks. Do you and Linda, but do you have a dream? Do you think about the future? I mean, you're a young kid, for great beats. You're still going to go places and do things and so on, but do you have any suggestions for the world?
Well, you know, I'm still in the mode of helping other people, and I suspect that's the mode I'll die in, is taking care of other people. You know, when something feels wrong and you've been wronged, you know, you can feel that.
Yeah.
And so when I feel that, and I also feel that somebody's been wronged, then I want to be an advocate to make it right. And that's kind of what we do also as an advocate. And so as far as what I would do, what I'd want to see in the future, we're here in Manatee County for the rest of our lives. In fact, I'm in the middle of closing on a home in Palmetto. You know, where they've got one of the best mayors around, you know.
She's a lovely
Mayor
person.
Shirley Bryant.
Yeah, that's good. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I skipped over, that like a final thought that you might have?
I would say this.
Yeah.
If we have veterans, all the veterans that are out there right now listening to this, become a member of one of the veteran organizations, and I'll tell you why this is important to you. First of all, whether you serve 4 years or you serve 20, or in my case over 30, you've enjoyed something called camaraderie. You've enjoyed the opportunity of sitting down and talking with others that's been there and done that, and has the t-shirt to prove it. So that's important to get these organizations. And not only that, there's something called lessons learned. You know, why reinvent a wheel? Why make the same mistakes that somebody had to make to find out the true answers or the right way or the right process? These individuals in the veteran service organizations have been through that process. Why not learn from them? Join a veteran service organization, and that will help you move forward. And if you're a young veteran that just got out of the service, take advantage of all your educational benefits that you have. Go see Lee Washington up at the county and his folks, because he'll get you set straight. Go see Todd Hughes over at University of South Florida or one of the other colleges in the area. Get your education completed. There's no reason why you wouldn't do that.
You just mentioned South Florida. They're starting a program this fall, aren't they, for veterans?
That's correct.
Yeah. So there are still lots of things you can do. Well, I have to thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings today's program to an end. I thank our special guest, Carl Hunsinger, and all that he has done for our country. Thank you also to the staff of METV for making this program possible. And most of all, I thank you, each and every person in our viewing community, for taking your time to watch America's Veteran. Finally, I wish to thank all the men and women in today's military. No matter where you are or what you may be doing, every role is important and key to the very existence of our nation. God bless you, and God bless America.